Welcome to Colney Talk Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. You're listening to Colney Talk Podcast, a bite-sized show. I'm your host, Alex. First-time guest, thank you for joining. Welcome to the show. And to my returning listeners, glad to have you back. On this bite-sized show, I talk a little bit about Arsenal game and pick out my top 3 Arsenal players who I think were great in the game, and one player I consider the other guy who just had a poor game or just not good enough. It was an embarrassing loss, this one. A pretty weird, devastating game against Brighton at home. It was a bright start in the game, full of energy, brilliant movements and pressing, playing Brighton in their own half, intercepting the ball, Jesus and Odegaard hesitating to take shots. I mean, we have talked about this quite a lot as one of our problems in attack. Xhaka with a hairline chance to intercept and score. Odegaard having a strong shot at the 15th minute of the game, which was a good sign to lean in on the intensity. It was devastating to see Martinelli get subbed off just before the 20th minute in the game. We hadn't done much to really create threatening chances. We were moving, we were doing quite a lot of things. Impressive first half. You know, the tackle for that injury, going back to Martinelli's, injury was just, it was a pretty bad one. Glad that it wasn't worse than it looked. And I think for all intents and purposes, it was a smart decision to really get him off and get Trossard in the game. We continued on full press. Was still fully deployed. Brighton didn't know what to do with the ball. We barely had any possession, unlike what we typically do. The way we really try to impact the game was playing off the ball. I was impressed because our typical domination was with the ball in most games that we know, but not this time. Arsenal really marveled very well to press, regain the ball in their own half, and execute. But as far as that execution, it was very blunt. We just kept having a very strong resemblance of Man City's style of play. It worked so well as if Arsenal front players were defenders working to prevent the ball from moving into our own half. Brilliant gameplay. Boy, were they clicking on all cylinders there, really pressing and closing down any chance. That was some serious chokehold of a press to disrupt any means of getting out the ball for Brighton, that is. Long pass, side pass, middle pass, switching, nothing. Almost halfway in the first, they were clamped down and it was just steady on. As I said, Jesus and Odegaard just didn't hit the ball at the first strike. Call it what it is, but I'm just a strong believer of getting into the box and being ruthless. It may seem like you're not being, you have to look at where you're shooting, but at times there's some level of quick shots that makes everyone, defenders, the goalkeepers, so unsettled. You create the momentum of that, then you get something. But we are so drawn to this 3 too many touches, and it has been a problem. It was what we did. We did everything in this game, but in that box, we were just so blunt. We just didn't hit at first strike on the ball, and that was just such a big problem. Then it started to look like the steam from our pressing was just dissipating. Sloppy passes here and there, losing the ball while driving back up into Brighton's third. But we managed to stay closer to the players and restrict their rhythm again, just to get us back into everything that we were doing earlier. We had another chance by Trossard, but it kissed the bar up top. Again, encouraging to just keep on going. We carried on doing very well up until we got into the box again, as I said. Nothing much to really convert from that. Then Brighton got their first chance, which was a bit later in the game, but wasn't much of a threat. At this point, this was about 38 minutes of the first half. Brighton were just trying to get settled into the game, which is pretty good in the whole assessment. But then we had to continue doing something to really put up a score on the board. There was just little of that because Arsenal, as we turned under pressure, we just couldn't do much to sustain that. Our passes weren't crisp. We just had just a few shot attempts. In doing all of that and pressing and creating a lot of these disruptions, a lot of crosses in the box, no one to connect. I just saw a few mistakes, but it was a well-rounded game. Well, I'll take that back. It was somewhat of a rounded game because we just did everything except execute to have more shot attempts to at least put up a score or something. So it was all that up until doing something within the box. I will still give full applause to the players because it was the first half and it was just only a matter of keeping on with this momentum, getting to the second half, which we did. Well, if just a few of that in a few minutes in the second half, it was looking about the same. And then we considered a weird goal. I mean, Kivio was kneeling, trying to fix his shoe, but he got pegged, on his backside of his leg. And I know that definitely was a foul. It was if he just, fell to the ground. Because looking back at it, it was a very weird situation that he got pushed. A player got pushed into his leg, and in any typical situation, that would have just been scratched off. It was such an easy header to concede that first goal. Everyone looked confused. I looked confused. We're looking at the refsmen and linesmen to really do something or say something because going back to review that, even with VAR that had the chance to review everything after the fact, nothing came out of it. So, well, that was our first goal that we're down. We've been there before, so I mean, we just had to pick back up and continue. But that seemed to have caused a momentum shift. Brighton were having an effective entry into the box through Mitoma. Interesting sub of Xhaka and Jorginho. I guess it was time to really switch up the tactics and get back into the game in a much intensive way and get a lot more speed and quickness in our passes because it wasn't growing. It didn't exist. We hadn't done much, and it was needed. Although it was such a head scratcher for me because they were not the people that I thought we would sub off. But it kind of worked a little bit because we saw Reece Nelson come in and take a good shot. That was the first shot, I believe, in the second half. We tried to replicate the level of intensity up top, but it wasn't happening. Not the same way, not even anything close to that. Add to that, Arsenal were just having a terrible moment in execution yet again up to the final point. Poor decisions in the box, too much dribbling. And by that, I mean 2 or more touches. And that's Trossard and Jesus that I'm talking about. We gave Brighton a chance to now dictate the game. They played it their own way. They looked to exploit areas we couldn't use to our own advantage, like the left back position, to energize our sequence in attack. Our first shot on goal was at the 70th minute from Odegaard to Trossard. And how did that come about? It was one pass and shoot in the box. Couldn't they have done this more earlier? Then it was ugly gameplay. Start, stop, injuries, dark arts, you name it. It was just everything to really keep us out of rhythm, and it worked. We're now chasing the lead. This was just one goal down, by the way. It was all about playing forward, trying to really pick up the urgency expectedly, but we did all that, and then the damage was done with the second goal. Trossard, to me, he received the ball in a good situation, but then it was careless. Kind of reminiscent of how I believe Partey tried to lob the ball over and he lost it, and they just clamped down and converted in their own favor. Very reminiscent of that. Nothing else mattered because we had no teeth to string series of passes in front, much less shoot. I mean, we considered a third, and that was just full time. There was nothing much of what you can see coming out of that, especially from that second goal. We were outplayed in the second half and didn't manage to create any consistency. From one unfortunate situation, we didn't build up a courage to play ourselves into the game. It was just as simple as that. We were outplayed, and it was more of a tactic management of the game in that second half when they had that lead, and we couldn't do anything to create some drive or build something, especially playing at home. It was just such a disappointing loss. Simple as that. On to my better players. First guy, Saka. After losing Martinelli, it was just his individual brilliance, which was very evident. It was just so unfortunate that his distribution in the box didn't result in anything tangible. He had a close shot, which was good. There wasn't a lot of that. Second player, Kivior. I liked his game. He looked the part, played really well, defended well. I was really impressed with his passes earlier in the first half. He kept things moving. I can live with that situation of the first goal. It is not a consequence of the entire loss of the game. We had so many other reasons to bring ourselves back into the game. We've been 1-0 down, or 2 for that matter, and turned it around. So it wasn't him. It wasn't the situation. There were so many other factors. But for him, I liked the way he played, and it was a very good performance. My third player, Tierney. There wasn't much of an attacking threat on the left. While we may have missed our element of attacking in Zinchenko, I don't think we suffered that much threat there because we had enough players in front. The way we played in the first half was so clear that we could have done exactly the same thing. The way if we managed to maintain the same tactics or consistency to put ourselves in a position to score and stay in the game. It was Ben White who had his hands full. Mitoma was giving him a hard time, so if anything, we were so quiet on the left. So to keep things at a minimum from that left for Brighton was such a good thing, which all came down to Tierney. Now, my other player today, it was clearly Gabriel Jesus. A complete shadow of himself when it came to scoring or being a scoring threat. If you ask me, I would have taken him off for Eddie Nketiah to inject more of that intensity we had up top. We had good chances in the first, again, lack of executions or really doing something, and he had himself a poor game. I mean, I expected Jesus to open the game up, especially in the back line like he usually does, cause chaos, just do much of what we expect him to do in terms of goal scoring or those chances. It was not there. Nothing to show for it. Nothing to even account for it in any way more than 2-3 shots. In the entire game, he wasn't connecting with Saka or Odegaard. It was frustrating to watch him play. A devastating loss. We all feel it more than anything from this game. But folks, we just have to get on with it. We look forward to the next game. I urge you to just look forward in the simplest way of how you analyze or look back or think about it, and we just keep on. That's how we can appreciate it all from these players and what they've done so far. Saka, Kivior, and Tierney are my better players. Jesus, my other guy. And with that, I'll wrap it up here. Until then, take care.